Why is it nice?
Okay, good afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to the next in our series of webinars for WSET School London. It's good to have you back. I hope you've been joining us for a few of the webinars already, which we started hosting at the beginning of lockdown when we were unable to do our in-person events. If you have, you may well have seen Maria already. Maria Moutsou is our host for tonight, our expert on all things Greek wine. So the plan for the evening will be to hand over to her. She's got a lovely presentation to show you. There is some tasting, so those of you that do have the wines, it would be great to know your tasting notes as we go along. If you have any questions, please do keep them till the end, and we'll have some time to chat then. I think that's about it from me. Okay, Maria, over to you.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks very much for this, to you and the WSET School London for this opportunity. My engagement with Greek wine is a pure love affair. So I'm a professional and got into Greek wine purely out of interest, love, curiosity, and passion brought all this together. And it's a fantastic way to discover territories, terroirs, history, and taste. So I strongly recommend wine tasting. I think it should be mandatory. I think it should be part of a secondary school education. So until then, there is a WSET school to give us this opportunity. So I'm going to talk to you about Greek wine today in general, focusing on two well-known grapes, perhaps the most known Greek grapes, iconic Greek grapes, that trace their roots very back into history, and we are going to discuss and see how. And we are going to see two examples. I believe comparative measures, they do help education. So I like to showcase different styles of wines so that we can pick the similarities and point out the differences. And I think this helps into our journey, knowledge journey. So the idea was to show two Assyrtikos white grapes first, one conventional, one natural, very good wine makings for both, and then two Agiorgitiko wines, two whites and two reds, and discuss a little bit about the new trend, the not so new trend of natural winemaking with you. So we'll make a start, and we are in the Greek wine territory, and just wanted to share with you the fact that you know already a lot, you know quite a bit about Greek wine and Greek language and Greek wine terminology. To start with, the words wine and vine, as well as enology and enologist, they come from the Greek word enos, and that's something that perhaps we are not very much aware. So all Western vocabulary around wine comes from the Greek word enos. Then we've got the word, the term ambelography. It's for that part of the botanical studies that they focus on the classification, identification of different types of grape plants, and the categorization of that. And then we have the agronomy, which is the science and the study of the land, the soil management, and the crop production. And then I just wanted again to show you how Greeks have not only built the language around wine, but also some thinking and influenced the way winemaking sort of developed from all times. They were one of the most active traders of wine in the ancient times, and they had a predilection for the coast, for the coastal areas of Europe. because it was there that they could carry out trading at its best, and in that sense, many of the coastal cities of modern Europe, they were established by Greeks like Nice, French Nice, and Antibes, Nicia, Antipoli, Marseille. And this is the route of the native grapes of the east, of the proximal east, traveling into the west. And Assyrtiko is one of these grapes. We are going to go back to that soon. And just another little thing about how the wine was regarded in ancient Greece. It was regarded highly. It was a highly priced product, agricultural product. And the focus there was more on the origin and the terroir rather than the grape varieties or the winemaker. So it was a communal work, and what was supposed to offer the highest quality was the land and the climate, that particular location where the wine was coming from. And there are various favorable comments in literature from the Homeric poems onwards about the most prestigious areas of making wine in ancient Greece, amongst which many islands like Chios, Kos, Lesbos, Naxos, Skopelos, Thassos, and the Chalkidiki Peninsula. And just one more thing about Greek grapes before we move into the Assyrtiko and Agiorgitiko showcase of today. We believe that Greek grapes are ancient. Well, grapes are ancient, is an ancient fruit. How ancient, how old are they? I think here, I think this talk gives me the opportunity to discuss a little bit with you how nature works, and draw. I guess some of you have recognized the male figure on the left. Is Charles Darwin. I live not far from his estate, from his family home. I have visited many times in southeast London. So he's known for a groundbreaking theory of the evolution of species. And this was based on a big journey that he did around the globe, visiting some remote areas, including the Galapagos Islands. Galapagos Islands are volcanic islands in the Pacific Ocean, just off, quite a bit off the coast of Peru. And he was able there to identify species, animal species, that seem to have been stuck in time. Sorry, I may have missed something there. So basically, he was able to show, one, that somehow in some areas time can go very slow, can not stop, but go very slow. And then he was able to establish some evolution connections between different parts of the globe, that being islands of the continent, as well as Asia, the Asia mainland. So in a way, it suggested that these lands were once connected. And then the stimuli for change, they didn't go that fast on both parts of the gap of the ocean, basically. So in Galapagos, we find these giant tortoises. They weigh various tons, and they can live up to 150 years. Unfortunately, their life expectancy has now been reduced because Galapagos is now a touristic destination, and basically the terroir, their habitat, has changed in ways that we can see and we can study, and perhaps we haven't fully studied. But there are definitely more animals now, more pests that have altered the habitat and have altered not only their nutrition sources, basically the availability of food for them, grass, but affected also the overall microbiome and the balance between the species. So going back to the original argument, certainly grapes are very old in Greece, and it seems that in some places, whereas not much change has taken place, places that they were kept in, if you like, guarded, isolated to a good extent, like Santorini, we believe that any changes that they are natural possibly happened in a very slow pace. For some of the grapes, that natural evolutionary development happened very slowly, and possibly they are very close genetically to the grapes that they were there 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. For Greek grapes and winemaking in Greece, we have evidence that goes back 6,500 years. And there are places in the world, Georgia, that we know that there has been, or Armenia, that there has been evidence of winemaking that goes back 8,000 years. And this is documented not only by the vesicles, by vessels, but also by peeps, grape peeps, and also presses, natural presses. So back to the question. Greek grapes, yes, they are old. They have been carrying the same names, and many of them, they are genetically very close to the grapes that our predecessors used to cultivate. And that really depends on how open its region was to changes in the habitat. And some areas were able to maintain their habitat and have a slow pace of evolution. And one of them is Santorini. So, and that's Santorini here, I'm showing to you. This is a beautiful picture by a very well-known photographer of the 30s and 40s in Greece. It's a lady photographer, professional photographer, Nelly. That's actually her artistic name. This picture and the negatives, the film negatives, are now stored in an important museum in Greece, the Nike Museum. And this is the vineyard of Santorini, very humble. You can see all the vines by the ground, by the soil. This is August, I believe. I have been in the exact location, looking over to that church. A couple of known wineries are around there. And it is a very modest view. For anyone that has visited, it is striking that this powerful wine, the powerful white wines, Assyrtiko wines of Santorini, come from humble sort of vineyards like this. So all plants are by the soil. They grow in baskets that they are kept by the ground to avoid harm by the wind and maintain humidity. Santorini is a volcanic island. The volcano Santorini is active. It's dormant but active. So in the mornings, once in the island, you will notice that there is a fog, a smoky fog that goes over the island, and the island, the living parts of the island, the houses are overlooking the sea, overlooking the steep cliff at about 300 meters. So you have a very good view over the volcano. So the center of the volcano is in the sea. The eruption of the volcano back in 1600 BC has caused the one island to split into 4 smaller islands. And then you're able to see that fog that comes up, which is a combination of the volcano smoke and evaporation of the seawater. So this cloud, this smoky cloud, this fog, is what maintains also the vines, allows some humidity to nurture the vine. There isn't the soil of Santorini is arid, is volcanic, dry, mineral, and arid. There is no water in Santorini. One of the difficulties on the island is that water needs to be transported from mainland, and that is why agricultural production has been limited in terms of quantity, but exciting in terms of quality. That lack of irrigation makes everything grown on the island really tasty, including some other PDO products, not just the grapes, also small tomatoes and fava beans and capers. So these are fantastic local products of amazing quality, taste quality. So Assyrtiko is now world famous. Is a grape native to Santorini, has offered amazing examples through the work, through passing the relay, the baton from one generation to the other, through talented winemakers, visionary winemakers, has established its power as a world-class grape for winemaking, and now it is an international grape. So, so we have Assyrtiko here, which, as we said, is the native grape of Santorini, but has been taken outside Santorini over 35 or so years ago. Is now grown all over Greece, but also the proximal Mediterranean. As far as I know, it's grown, and now it gives commercial labels in Lebanon. I have heard it's been grown in Turkey. Knowingly, it's been grown in Clare Valley, in Australia, South Africa, California, and so on. Grape that maintains, it's a well-trained grape. And I'm sure its habitat, its natural habitat, has played a role in that. So it's a grape that maintains high levels of acidity. It's very resistant to drought and disease, and has a relatively thick skin that is protective, also supplies a good amount of nice tannins to work with for the winemaker. But I think its sort of quality lies in the high levels, good body, good level of sugars, alcohol potential, high acidity really, and resistance. It's an early ripening, so harvest happens in August. And we are going to see two examples of that in a minute. And just an overview of Agiorgitiko, which is the second grape I have chosen, which again is the backbone of red wine in Greece. It's a typical Mediterranean grape, capable of giving pleasant wines with a good amount of tannin, good amount of body, fruitiness, red fruit character. Again, has some resistance in disease, good resistance in disease. It's not totally, it is a little vulnerable, but is not completely immune, but has a good resistance to disease. Has again large-sized berries as Assyrtiko, a good amount of tannins, and this one has been grown on the mainland, originally on the plateau of Nemia. Again, has been sort of dispersed throughout Greece, and now mainland obviously is a place where a lot more is happening, movements of population, more active trade, less defense, less natural defense. So the grape has seen different practices, and we have a good number of clones identified of this grape. So the grape is a plant that propagates and changes very easily. So we have 260 clones of that. And now there has been an effort. There has been a mission by a nursery that is based in the area. I need to say that Nemia is the largest BDO area of Greece. Is really the sort of heart of Greek wine, with around 45 wineries, commercial wineries, and just under 4,000 hectares. And the nursery there is trying to identify and clarify clones of Agiorgitiko, so they are passed to the next generations clean of disease. Plants can be affected by disease, by viral diseases, and this goes into their DNA. So the nursery tries, if you like, to purify some strands that can be ideal for winemaking, can be more suited for winemaking. And they have an aim to work with 6 clones. I think they have possibly finalized 1 at the moment, but there is some work underway in that front. But I just wanted to point out here that we have Assyrtiko, quite pure on one hand, not that many clones, has stayed in a very sort of secluded place, an arid place and difficult place. And then we have a land grape, a mainland grape that has seen a lot more transformation and gives a lot more styles as well. Being a red wine, I think you can give more styles anyway in regards to winemaking. So that's an overview of the grapes we are seeing today, and that's the central part, the central map of Greece here. So the wines I'm showing to you today, they come from that core of mainland Greece. So we don't have anything from the islands today. We are very much into the central area of Greece. So our first 2 wines come from central Greece. One comes from the northern part of Evia. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. Great. So Evia is a large island. People think that it's actually part of the mainland, but it's an island. It's the second largest island of Greece after Crete. It's a piece of land that, interestingly, is sort of formed by the side of the mainland. I would consider myself Greece as an island, as a big island with smaller islands. So it's so rugged and caved and laced. I would consider Greece as an island myself. But anyway, we have here this island, Evia, that lies on the side of the main body of the country. And there is a strait here, a very, very active in terms of winds and water current strait. So all the straits around Greece are quite active. Same goes with the Gulf of Corinth here. There are very interesting currents, and they can, you won't believe that in such proximity of land you can have really tremendous weather, but you can. They can be a nightmare for sailors, these straits. So this volcanic island, I'm getting there, this volcanic island of Evia shows big differences of terroir between the north and the south. It's surrounded by sea, which allows a good circulation of wind. And our winery lies here in the north, in an area that is known for volcanic activity, because we do have spas and we do have thermal water coming nearby. So our winery is located here. We're going to see a better map in a minute. And then we have well-known spas across to the mainland and onto the island as well, Edipsos and Kamena Vourla. And then the second winery, where the natural wine is coming from, is from up north from the mainland here, where we have mountainous volumes, mountainous masses, as they come down from the Balkan Peninsula, and they sort of come together here, and they create plains, they create lakes, they create water reservoirs and rivers. Unfortunately, we had a storm recently, quite a fierce storm that has caused damages in the area. just shows, you know, the mountainous character and the volumes of water that can be sort of drawn into this area. So this is where our Assyrtikos are coming from. And then we have 2 Agiorgitikos from Nemea, which is the heart of Agiorgitiko grape and the main PDO region of Greece, which is down here on the northern part of the Peloponnese, on the plateaus and the slopes of the main valley of Asopos. Asopos is a river, is an ancient river, and on the valley of the river and other smaller valleys and smaller rivers, we have the vineyards of Nemea sort of extending. So going into Assyrtiko, the Assyrtiko wines that we're going to taste from the central Greece. So central Greece, I don't know if anyone has visited. There is one location that I think everyone has to visit. If anyone makes a trip to Greece, before anything else, I think I would recommend visiting Delphi. And second, I would recommend visiting Epidaurus Theatre. And then I can suggest various other things, islands and so on. So this is Delphi, if you have heard of them. It's a location where Delphic feasts were happening in the ancient times, is where the oracle of Delphi and Apollo and Pythia was located. So all the oracles, some of them are known, or the main oracles, the important ones, were coming from this spot. It's a beautiful spot that is, I think it just creates a move to everyone that will sit in that location, because it's an elevated point within a plateau, and impressive mountains all around. I think it's really a unique place. So this is, and ancient Greeks thought that this is the belly button of the world, of their world anyway. So for ancient Greeks, this was the belly button of Earth. At that time, we thought Earth was also flat, but anyhow, just shows the energy this place has. So we're in central Greece there, and this is where the first winery is. We said is the north part of the Evia island. It's an amazing location because we have 2 straits. It opens up almost to the Aegean on one part, on one side, and then to the Strait of Euripus on the other side. And within really a few kilometers and a visual contact, you have opetics to both seas. So you can really see both seas looking at different directions. It's an amazing piece of land. A very good draining because it's on a slope, very good exposure to sun, and very good wind, air circulation. So it's ideal for winemaking. So that's our first wine that I have here. Is considered one of the best Assyrtikos outside Santorini. The vintage I have is a 2018. It's also one of the first Assyrtikos I have tasted myself a long time ago. Now the wines I have today, they are propped in alcohol. Because we have Assyrtiko, which is a grape that has a high alcohol potential. And here we have 2 examples of good winemaking of ripe grapes. So we have here 13.6 on this wine. And there's no oak influence here, but there has been maturation on the lees, on the fine lees, for 6 months. It's a really full-bodied, rich wine, and it's a nice contrast to the very mineral volcanic Santorinian. So it's a little bit more elegant, but with good body, good intensity, and complexity of flavors. So a little bit more about the winery on this sort of opportunity. The winery works on mainly on native grapes, and one of the grapes they work on, which is an exclusive sort of grape for them, is Vriniotis, a red grape. So it's the only winery that works on them, and it's a grape variety and a wine that we also work with. Vriniotis, very interesting. Unusual red grape. The winery is a family winery. It's a small to medium-sized winery with an output of around 120,000 bottles, and they are very considerate in their cultivation and winemaking. So that's our conventional, let's say, considerate Assyrtiko. And then we have a natural Assyrtiko from across onto the mainland, from where our marker is, which is Karditsa. We have a view of the vineyard on the left in spring. The vineyard is obviously the one that is being fenced in the distance. We are here at about 300. Actually, the altitude is very similar on both sides. So we are at about 350 meters of altitude on both sides. But obviously, you know, they may seem the two vineyards very close to each other. There is a lot of in between. It doesn't look like on the map, but Greek land is very diverse, and I think you need to visit to understand that. It's so diverse, and what looks flat on the map looks a matter of maybe some kilometers. It's not, because you have to travel down the hill and up the hill and the mountains and so on, and you have to go around rivers and lakes and so on. So it's not a simple affair. It's not a simple thing. So we've got this organic winery here that was established in 1991. So the wineries, most of the wineries I'm presenting today, 3 out of 4, they were established in the 90s. So this winery got organic certification in 1991. They were the first, one of the very first, I think they were the first that obtained organic certification for cultivation of vines in Greece. And they are working on about 11 hectares of vineyards. It's now a new generation that works on the vines. We are in an area that, mountainous area, on the north of Karditsa town, that is called A-Grafo and A-Grafo mountains. A-Grafo means non-chartered, unchartered, and that is because during Ottoman rule, it was so difficult to access because of that mountainous terrain that administration has almost forgotten them. They haven't chartered them. They couldn't collect taxes. They left them alone. They thought there wasn't much to collect there. There wasn't much, perhaps, cultivation or product to tax. It just shows that, you know, in a way, it is a pristine area. It continues to be a pristine area still. So they work very gently on the land with low yields. Everything is done manually. Cultivation and harvest is done manually. Winemaking, again, is made in small batches with native yeasts, and they don't use press. So everything is with gentle sort of effect on the grapes and gravity. And then they bottle, they create natural wines. So all the wines have small amount of intervention, very, very little, and small amount of sulphites added on bottling. And they have a series from which this wine I'm showing today comes from, which is 0 sulphites. So they have sort of stretched the limit of the winemaking by securing very, very healthy grapes, well-ripe grapes, very good conditions in the winery. It's not easy. I mean, it's not impossible to make natural wine, especially in places that are blessed, are meant for that. But also you need to be very careful because there are risks. So you have to maintain a good ecosystem in the vineyard. You have to maintain a clean winery as well, not sterile, but not allowing things that could pose a risk, could harm, could inoculate the vines with the wrong microorganisms. And they have managed, working on 4 varieties, native varieties, to create 0 sulphites wine. I have their Assyrtiko. So their Assyrtiko is vintage of this year, so it's a new addition to their portfolio. It's showing beautifully. It's a 14% Assyrtiko, so we are, as we said, well extracted here, well ripe grapes. But you can see there is a little bit of skin contact here, so they allow, there's no press, but they do allow the skins to stay for a little while, for a few hours, not hours, a few days, but not excessively, maybe 4 or 5 days in the juice to extract some of their tannins and phenols in. So it's a beautiful Assyrtiko. It's a dry Assyrtiko, but the ripeness of the grape comes through. So it has this sort of warm notes. I wouldn't say sweet, I will call them warm notes. And it has a taste of ripe citrus peels, and lots of stone fruits, nectarine in particular, and peach, and has also a mineral backbone, not the type of Santorini's backbone, so more elegant, more limey one, rather than the sort of bold lava minerality of Santorini. So that's our second Assyrtiko. So some people are able to taste that, and I would like to hear your comments. How do you find that? And then we move to Nemia and the Agiorgitikos. So here we are at the heart of, more or less at the heart of Greece, quite centrally in terms of, you know, the Greek territory, but also in the heart of Greek wine. As we said, the largest PDO region of the country and the largest plantation of Agiorgitiko in one space. So the PDO region is divided into subregions. And those, they also include different locations and different villages. So it's quite a widely sort of spread region. So we have smaller valleys because the main river, I suppose, has obviously branch rivers, smaller rivers branching out. And we have all altitudes up to 900 meters, but for the PDO, we count from 300 to 900 meters, but we have all altitudes, as you can guess. So we have the main plateau, the main valley, Nemia Valley, is where the town of Nemia is found. And we have subregions, and you may have come across checking various wines from the area. Some winemakers, they put down the actual location of the winery. So you may have seen some of these names here. So we have Koutsi, Galatas, Aious Dimitrios, Aidonia, Petri, all in the main valley. And then we have the ancient Kleones, which is more to the north. We have the ancient Neme. I will show you one of our wines comes from there. This is where the ancient, very well-known city of Neme was located, and very well-known Nemean games, very similar to the Olympic Games. There were a number of such games in ancient Greece, so it wasn't just the Olympic Games. There were also Nemean and Isthmian and Sicyonian games. So we couldn't keep all of them in modern times. We had to choose. And then we have Leondio, Asprokambos, which is quite high. It's actually an area that it snows quite often in the winter. So in the same region, the same PDO, there can be in one time, at any one time, a temperature difference within the same PDO of up to 15 degrees of Celsius. So we can have snow in one part of the PDO, and we can have just a temperate winter weather in another part. Then we have Kefalari, Climenti, Malandreni, which is more south and east. We are actually in a different administrative region, and Xyrokambos And about 20% of the vineyards are at a good altitude of 500 meters. So the Central Valley, it's off the main town of Nemia. It has a good concentration of wineries. This is also where the cooperative, the once mighty cooperative of the region, is situated. Has a good concentration of wineries, different ages, different winemaking styles, different production output, and then we have different altitudes. At around 300 meters is the standard for the region. The wine I'm going to show you, the first of the two red wines, Agiorgitiko wines, comes from a single vineyard, which is just off. The winery is in that region, but the vineyard, the plot, is just off across and at a higher altitude of 700 meters. And the weather is continental, with medium precipitation there. So the first Agiorgitiko I'm showing to you comes from a family winery. It was established in 1997 by a winemaker that in a way wanted to create something different in the region. As I said, the region provides a lot of the well-known red wine of Greece, or used to, has a reputation all over Greece. So it's the one name that everyone knows about wine in Greece, Nemean wine. And it's quite interesting because once I have visited a winery in another well-known region for red wine in Greece, in the north. And I was shocked to see that just up the road from this winery, there was this merchant that was selling wines of Nemea, like from completely another part of the country. And it's like, it felt like a conflict there. Quite interesting, those. I thought there wouldn't be any market there. They have enough of their own very good red wine, so there shouldn't be any market. Just shows how that brand, that marketing name has sort of worked throughout the country, the Nemean name. So here in Nemea, we have a standard style, which is moderate, maybe a little bit overripe, I would say. The traditional style is well-ripe fruit and then matured in barrel for about 12 months. So this is the traditional style. But then winemakers have started experimenting with different harvesting times, different fruit quality, and different maturation times as well. So different styles, interestingly, sprang out and sort of, I think they enriched the style of Nemea overall. So the winemaker here came in with a view to produce very extracted wines, not just the medium sort of extraction and good presence of good flavors in the wine, but rather very solid fruit. And then an interaction with a more gentle interaction with wood, with a barrel. And he sort of produced very extracted styles in the way of perhaps Californian wines or Super Tuscan wines. People think that Agiorgitiko grape has similarities with Sangiovese, perhaps with Tempranillo, with Cabernet Franc, just to put it in place. Of course, we have to see every wine for what it is. So I'm not saying, we should necessarily draw parallel lines, but it's a good way to understand the grape. So the Nemea I have here is a 2014. It's a 14% alcohol. It's a single vineyard at 700 meters of altitude. Very purpley still, 2013, but a very purpley deep color. Has been in barrel, not first use, new barrel, but not first use, second and third use, for 18 months. So it's a well-made wine, and it's a typical new era Agiorgitiko, Nemia. So that's that. And from that well-extracted wine, we are going to an even more extracted wine on the fourth example. So here we are in ancient Nemia. So we are away from the main valley. We are, if you like, laterally. We go towards the main motorway, and this is a beautiful part, I think, of the region. Whereas the temple of Zeus, so the main temple there is dedicated to Zeus, and this is where a stadium exists to date, where the games, the Nemean games, took place. The winery I'm showing, and the wine I'm showing today here, is a relatively new winery. It was established in 2007. And this is an area that has big names as well, or at least one big name around the corner. So in a way, you're making wine under, in the shade of a big name. And I will reveal later what the big name is. But it's an organic winery, so it's very nearby the Papaioannou winery. I can reveal now. And which is also an organic winery. And they were established with a view, again, to work on their own fruit. So all the fruit comes from their own estate. And they have working on the production of a natural Agiorgitiko natural PDO Nemia for a few years. Personally, I know the region. I come quite, close from where the region is found. But the way I found out about the winery was through my dentist, who has recommended. And then my interest was sort of, caught by the fact that they were working on the natural Nemia. And this is a 0% sulphites Nemia, not just natural, but they have managed to bottle without sulphites. And I have to say here that on my discussions with Father Papaioannou, who has now passed away, I can tell that that an old winemaker that started his winemaking just after the Second World War, he had as a vision, he had as a name, that feat of producing natural wines without sulfite, just for his own satisfaction. So I just want to tell you that, other than a trend nowadays, I think very winemakers with dedication, they want to challenge themselves into this sort of field, producing really healthy grapes and trying and producing valid wines with the minimum of intervention. And he was very glad to tell that he was very near to do that. So the other winemakers, so just to show that, there's a quest that, the winemakers may be having that we don't know about. Is a new generation that sort of pushes that barrier. But some old winemakers, they have been working, thinking, dreaming about that. That's nicely coming into place. So this Agiorgitiko is almost 15% of alcohol. It expresses the grape in a very interesting way. It sort of shows the sour cherry and licorice side of the grape in an amazing way. The wood has been matured in used barrels, oak barrels, shows very little. It's a wine that can be opened and drunk in a month's time, amazingly, without sulfites, just shows the concentration. So I would really like to know, for those who have the wines, how do you find them and what do you think? So this 2016 that I'm having here was the first PDO Nemia and first 0% sulfites Agiorgitiko that was produced. Really interesting and compact wine. So And with that, I think we are sort of drawing to the end of this presentation, and just wanted to bring up some questions around this discussion. So, conventional or natural? I think they are both valid. I think the overall vision of the winemaker is important. I think the most important here is harmony with the vineyard, harmony of the vineyard with the outer habitat, harmony of the winemaker with a vineyard. And of course, we sort of look at the wine from the commercial point of view as well. But I think this has to be in harmony as well with everything else. So I think when the elements are sort of coexisting in a creative dialogue, this is where we get the most. So all the elements, they should not, they should coexist in a creative dialogue rather than overshadowing one another. And there is indeed a modern quest for more sustainable cultivation. I think, we have seen a need in our sort of bigger life, in the wider world. We have seen some limits, climate limits, environmental limits, and we are looking also for taste, purity. I think we can sort of keep that as a guidance. We can keep this as a compass. There's no harm in utilizing technology that is considerate. I think it's a very good thing that we have now tools and we can go around difficulties, problems, diseases. It's a fantastic thing. It's just that as well has to be in harmony with everything else that has existed and hopefully will continue to exist. And the 0% sort of chimeric quest, 0% sulphites, it is very much possible. It is possible for Greek wine and Greek grape varieties because they have that concentration. Many of them are grown in arid, under arid conditions. They are very sort of well-trained. Grapes are very healthy. So if the yield is controlled and if conditions are controlled, I think it is more than possible. I mean, I'm amazed by the number of wines I have found 0% and showing beautifully as well. It's not just that we managed to bottle something with 0% sulfite. It's just that it's complete. It continues to develop healthily in the bottle, so it's not a finished product and survives well. So I would say it is very much possible, and we can have beautiful examples if this is what somebody wants. So yes, so I have made credit. I have offered credit to wherever photographs of that were not mine. This is mine, this photograph. But wherever they were not mine, I have given credit on this presentation. And I would like to thank the school very much for this opportunity, the Greek winemakers for all the hard work and their visions. And Kudos Wines is an online Greek wine shop that has put together this pack. And also everyone that has an interest in wine. I think, as I said previously, I think wine is part of the diet. It should be part of our lives, and is a fantastic way to train also our taste. So thank you very much to all.
Thank you, Maria. That was really interesting, and I think a thing we don't often get an opportunity to consider or compare directly different winemaking approaches to the same variety, especially I think Greek grape varieties, which maybe we don't necessarily think about the extent of natural winemaking going on over there. So yeah, wonderful. I think there were a few questions that came up during, if you've got a bit of time to hang around.
Absolutely, yes. I'm having a look at the chat now.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.